What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports lineup review show. I'm your host, Mangone. I'm back with my buddy Hoop. Hoop, how's it going over there? How was your week?
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, it was, I don't know the best way to describe, the cash games, but it was, we were kind of just talking before we hopped on here. And I feel, if you sat down to build your teams at like 12:55 p.m. Eastern, right, 5 minutes before lock, I feel like you could have landed on these cash teams that I felt were optimal on FanDuel and DraftKings. It was a very easy week to build teams. Even with the high price tag of Dalvin Cook, which we'll talk about, it was still just very easy. Each site had some guys that were just really mispriced. And like you kind of said in the opening, I don't think it would hurt the sites to wait a little bit later into the week to release their pricing. Like releasing the pricing on Monday for a slate that's going to be played on Sunday, just not very inefficient. It's going to lead to a lot of underpriced guys, which we ended up getting this week, with Myles Gaskin on FanDuel at 5.5K. He was a lock. And, his workload indicated that. Now, he got stuffed on the goal line like 3 times. That's a whole nother story. And Dalvin Cook ran incredibly bad on the goal line. I mean, those two on the goal line, was not fun. But, like, you had to play Gaskin when they had, like, no other running back. So, I don't think it would be a bad idea, like you said, to wait a little bit later in the week to release the pricing. For cash games, it was very simple, and we're going to cover some tournament stuff today as well. And there's a couple guys you basically needed in tournaments to have a chance.
Yeah, like one thing they could do is, listen, they can just send an email like on like Wednesday or Thursday, say, hey, we made an update to this, yada, yada, yada. And like, if someone doesn't update their lineup, right, and like it's probably one random $15 lineup, right? Just give them a ticket to next week, right? So they can play again. Try and it's frustrating. It's obviously.
It's very frustrating when you open up these contests and, we all put a lot of time into it throughout the week. And then you open up these contests, 20-man contests, and you see 10 people have the same lineup. And now last year when that was happening, people, oh man, everyone's cheating, playing the same lineup. Now I think people are finally smart enough to realize that these obvious plays, there's just so many obvious plays week in and week out, just leads to the same builds. Like especially this week. To me, this week was the most cut and dry lineup construction process that we've had all season long.
Yeah, no, it felt pretty easy, simple, and we'll talk about it here in a second. Before we do that, though, I do want to mention we got 2 promos going on. We have a 15% promo leading up to NBA. It's Buckets 15. You get 15% off for lifetime as long as you lock into that price. If you keep paying for that, you'll be getting that 15% discount. And then we also have a code RunPure over at Monkey Knife Fight. You put $50 on the site, they will give you a $50 bonus on top. So instead of getting $50, you will get $100 altogether. So head on over, check that out, and be sure to get our Discord where we have Monkey Knife Fight plays drop in the Discord chat. That's awesome for people to be able to get in on the plays, and you got to get on them quick because they move fast. So check that out. Also, we have a show going on, I believe, for Monkey Knife Fight throughout the week, and we're talking about some Monkey Knife Fight today on the free show you're doing, right, Hoop, on the 2:30 show for the 2-game slate.
Yeah, if you listen to this and it's before 2:30 Eastern, we'll be going live. We're going to cover the 2-game slate. We're going to cover the Monkey Knife Fight content, and then we're also going to cover the Showdown contest for the later of the 2 games today, which is the Bills and the 49ers. So a lot of stuff coming up, and the slate today is somewhat interesting, but yeah, that'll be covered 2:30 Eastern, live, free.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I already dove in the slate. Get this, Hoop. Who's the best Steelers receiver? Name him for me. What's his name?
I mean, Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, he's the 3rd longest favorite to score a touchdown today. Isn't that crazy to think? Like, why is he plus 165? I know Claypool's the red zone big guy, but like Juju should not be ahead of him. I'm just like absolutely baffled by that.
I was looking at that stuff too. It is pretty surprising. I mean, Claypool, I kind of understand he's getting a lot of those deep looks, and obviously, Deontay's kind of, for the most part, it's been, kind of smaller dink and dunk type things, but he's also getting some deep looks too. Like Ben he's just so safe. So yeah, that's it is interesting though that he's the longest of the 3 to score a TD.
Yeah, I was gonna say I might put on the bet side a little Deontay Johnson to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
So if you want to put a bet in our Run Pure Bet side, there's a free one for you. I like that a lot. I think I'm going to be on that. Hit the Kelsey touchdown prop yesterday. Hopefully I can hit this Deontay Johnson one today. Let's talk about this slate though. Do a little bit of review. It's pretty straightforward. First of all, so the first thing I noticed when I opened up my DraftKings slate, first guy I said that was mispriced was Aaron Rodgers. I was like, 6,800 feels off against the Eagles, pass funnel, easy play. Once Madison, we talked about the Dalvin Cook thing. I guess you could go into detail a little bit more about it. I was unsure about Dalvin Cook until Madison ended up being ruled out. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of, you and I have been on, we were on 2 shows prior to yesterday. We were on our cash show and then the Wood. And on the cash show on Friday, we talked about him. It wasn't a comfortable play. Kind of, he left early last game with that injury, the ankle injury. There was some coach talk about, potentially slowing him down here a little bit. And you and I were both somewhat hesitant. I mean, if Madison's not ruled out, he's still may have made our lineups. Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't have played him. I mean, I don't think you were either, but there was some hesitation. Well, then Madison gets ruled out on Saturday. No concern for them to slow down on his workload. He just becomes a guy that you're playing, even at the elevated price tag. We had enough value to be able to get some expensive guys in our lineup, and it was easy to play him come Sunday. So, with that news on Madison, you just kind of play him, and he becomes the spend at the position. Now he ended up running, he still got there. I mean, he still had 26.9 fantasy points, but you almost feel like you got cheated, because they had the fumble at the 1 yard line. He got stuffed, I think, on another occasion. And then at the end of the game in the overtime, he's like inches short of the goal line. So he should have had a monster game. But, still, he was a guy that you needed in your lineups anyway. Mute.
Yeah, I got myself muted. So he was definitely a good play. David Montgomery, talk about him versus the other cheap guys, versus Booker, versus Gaskin. 2 great options that you could look at. I thought Montgomery was the clear guy over on DK. Gaskin, I understood maybe for 400 more, and we'll get to him, but I felt like Montgomery was the move on DK.
Yeah, so on FanDuel, the prices were a little bit different. On DK, it was, Montgomery was 5,500, and there's just, with those other guys, with Booker, okay, you don't know for sure what his role is going to be. Gaskin coming back off the injury, you don't know for sure what his work's going to be. David Johnson, what his work's going to be. He getting all the goal line work, he gets passing work. We ran good. I mean, he got two touchdowns in that first half. Really didn't do too much in the second half. Once you got those 2 touchdowns in the first half, it was easy. I mean, you were good to go. So I thought he was an easy play on DK. On FanDuel, you're deciding between those cheap running backs, and it wasn't as clear on FanDuel as it was on DK for me.
Yeah. Before we talk about these receivers, I want to say, guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe on the video for us. It helps us out a ton. We just got the 3K subscribers, so that's awesome. And please hit that like. It helps us out. I do want to talk about the receivers and mention one thing. So, like, people might be looking at this team and say, Brandon Cooks and Kike Kute, why didn't you play Deshaun Watson? I guess, like, maybe give people a breakdown on that, because that's something I debated. I said, hey, I know Watson is 800 more, and I think Rodgers is a better value play, but why didn't you just play Watson with, Kute?
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times in the show, and, to me, like, if you're strictly playing cash games, I don't think you have to worry about the correlation stuff. Now, if you're playing, tournaments, even single entry tournaments, things like that, without a ton of people, even if you're playing a 20-person tournament, you're going to want to look at that correlation a little bit more. If you're strictly head-to-heads, 50-50s, the cash game type stuff that we talk about, I don't think you necessarily have to worry about that. And there was a $700 price difference. And, Aaron Rodgers, the floor is just so high with him, just phenomenally high. So I don't think you really need to do that in cash games. Now, if you're playing cash games and tournaments, like, separate it, find a build within this same core with Deshaun Watson, Cooks, QT, and then just play this Rodgers team in cash games. Mute.
Got myself muted again. Not off the great start here, but Yeah, no, I'm with you on all of that. Obviously, getting those floors too is nice. Like sometimes people are kind of getting confused. Like in tournaments, playing Cooks and Kike Kute without Watson wouldn't make as much sense. But you're creating a really nice floor with that because someone's going to get points, right? It's not like no one's going to do anything. I know I had someone say to me, "Hey, like Kike Kute's, loves getting zeros. Like, do I want to play him?" It's like, well, yeah, like the Texans have no one there. So like just take those two, create a nice little floor. You got 200 yards there.
Yeah, that's the argument I didn't understand this week. A lot of people were making the point, oh, QT sucks. Like, I don't want to play QT. I'd probably play Isabella. Like, we've seen Kiki be productive. Like, we've seen him be very productive. Bill O'Brien apparently had something against him. I mean, he kind of phased him out. He phased him out, but the guy's talented. Like, he can haul. I think he's a good player. We've seen big games out of him in the past, and they literally had nobody else. So a lot of people, in the industry are making cases against QT. I thought it was bad because, obviously in hindsight, it's easy to say he was a good play. He got got us 25 fantasy points here, but 3.5K. They have no one to throw it. They have, and the biggest thing, one of the biggest reasons I liked them, they have no running game. Like, those guys can't run. Like David Johnson, like they have dusty dudes back there. Like, they're gonna have to pass. Yeah. And I don't know. I thought it was a good play. And then Cooks was just this is a situation, where pricing coming out later in the week really could have helped with Brandon Cooks. With Fuller being out, Cooks just at 5.6K. Right. He didn't get there. Don't get me wrong. Like, he left a little bit for the injury, but that's just a cash game lock. And the same on FanDuel at 6.5K for all the reasons I just mentioned with QT. They had no one else, and they can't run it. Like, you had to play Cooks. He's the lock of the slate in cash. We talked about it. And then the other wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, just way too cheap too. This was a poor price on Kupp and a really good matchup. It didn't even seem like he had that good of a game. And then he gets there with 15 fantasy points, 8 catches, 73 yards, which is good enough for his price tag, but it was bad pricing on Cooks and Kupp on both sides.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Ferkser, was he just like an auto plug and play? So Darren Waller was there, and he, when he has like a 50-point game, we should at least talk about it. But I still think Ferkser was right. I don't want to act like, I feel like I'm, smarter, than anyone who played Waller, but I just think it was a wrong play to go to him. Sure, Waller can have those upside games. I get it, but I think it was wrong. I think Ferkser was the move.
Now, when you're looking at the price difference. It's $3,500 from Waller to Ferkser, right? Wasn't Waller 6K, correct?
Yeah, I'm sure it was
3,500. Like, anytime you can get a 2,500 tight end that's going to be on the field. They didn't do anything in the first half. The Titans were a disaster for the most part in the first half. He got there in the second half in garbage time, and actually they gave him, I don't know if you saw at the end of that game, he had like 3 red zone, and he was wide open on one. Tannehill just missed him, so he would have really had a big performance. But at 10.10 here on DK, that's more than enough for a $2,500 player. Cash games it was a very simple play. So far everything we've talked about, I think, Aaron Rodgers underpriced, Cook, Montgomery, Kupp, Cooks, QT, Ferkser. And the problem is, okay, so what is this, a high big field 50-50, right?
Yeah, I think there's like 500 people on 100 in first place. It's a massive train of people.
So this is the problem with cash games nowadays, right? Aaron Rodgers 52%, Cook 79%, Montgomery 69%, 55%, 89%, 55%, 76%. It gets hard to beat rake when those numbers are so high. It really does. It's hard to beat the rake. You're talking so many people on this team, so easy to make it. It gets difficult. And, so Austin Eckler, 7.1K. Guy had 16 targets last week. This week, Chargers overall were an absolute disaster. That was one of the most embarrassing performances I think I've ever seen. The fact that coach still stands is shocking to me. He is awful. He is absolutely awful. And Herbert played terrible. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not all Lynn's fault here, but Herbert played terrible.
I'm not shocked they lost. Like, I had a buddy, he was like telling me to bet the Chargers. He's a sharp dude, and I trust a lot of his takes. I said, listen, man, like, I'm not betting that coach against Bill Belichick. That's like the dumbest thing I can think of. And like, the other worry I had with Kalen Ballage is I was like, Sure, is Austin Eckler in the CMC role? Yeah, but like I was like, this dumb coach is going to play Kalen Ballage. Like he likes him. Like he's going to actually play Kalen Ballage more than you'd want him to with Austin Eckler. I don't know what the snap difference was, but it felt like Kalen Ballage was getting more work than I wanted.
Well, I mean, whenever, the first drive completely busts and then the second drive, the Ballage is in, it's going to be tough for Eckler to get there. And, that was the case. They didn't have the football as a disaster. I really did want Seahawks defense at 3,300 against the Giants, backup quarterback. I mean, the most shocking game of the slate, Giants beating the Seahawks. But 3.3K, I really wanted them in this spot. And 9 fantasy points is good for a defense. So I thought they were the right place. Team just kind of came together. Like I said, you could have sat down and built this team in a matter of minutes and felt really good about it and moved on. There was one pivot that some people were on. I think it was Woods. Booker, and a cheap defense over QT, Eckler, and Seahawks. Is that the 3v3 that you were kind of looking at too?
Yeah. Well, mine was. I'm trying to think. So yeah, it was Gaskin for Montgomery. Did you say that?
Okay, so it was a little bit different.
Mine was Gaskin for Montgomery, Kike Kute to like Mims, Perriman, like any of those receivers, right? There was a lot. Hilton you could consider, and then it was like pick your defense. Like I didn't mind a lot underneath. Like I didn't mind the Lions who were 2,500. I didn't mind the Chargers who were 2,600. I'm forgetting. There's one more that was at like the 3K range that I was considering.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that's just. I mean, I'd look at some too, but at that point, I was just trying to get cute because anytime you feel so comfortable with the team, you don't want to just settle on it. And this was a team that I think when a lot of people built it, a lot of people played it because it's so obvious. You just get comfortable with it, and you don't look at other options. So it is always good to kind of look around, but at the end of the day, if you didn't play this year, you were just kind of getting too cute. I thought it was just an easy team to make. And it did well. I mean, it did well in the 50-50s, double ups, all that stuff. It was a well-rounded lineup.
All right, well, RNDK, let's, actually, we're doing the FanDuel one next. But before we do that, guys, please hit the like and subscribe on the video. Also, I wanted to mention the playbook and core plays. I know you're doing that today. You got the 2-game playbook already up, but, it's one of our, best products. Talk about it a little bit, Hoop, the core plays for us.
Yeah, so the playbook's kind of just a rundown of the overall slate, just a consensus type ranking system that we have. And then we have core plays. All our main contributors list their core plays. And, we have cash cores, we have tournament cores, single entry cores, large field GPP cores. It's our most popular product on the main slates. Everyone kind of does a breakdown of, why they're playing those guys and, other things they're looking at. On the smaller slate like today, we'll just have the cores and go from there. But the core play is definitely our most popular product and been doing well in all sports. Golf, I mean, the golf, Showdown golf, NFL, college basketball. The college basketball product's been very solid. Steve Boynton brought him on board to head up that operation, and he's been doing a phenomenal job with college basketball. Not much of a college basketball guy myself, never really got into it, but his content has been very solid, very solid. And then the other piece, man, Titletown on the MMA. Titletown, I think, is doing a phenomenal job with that piece. One of my favorite pieces of content by far. I mean, he does a great job breaking it down. He has core plays listed as well. So a lot of different things. And the we have that Buckets 15 promo right now that's kind of leading up to NBA. And, if you do a monthly, weekly plan, you get literally everything on the site. Like, a lot of these other companies try to nickel and dime you with these, each sport differently. So, NBA starting, so they're going to try to charge you $300, and then MLB will be starting. They'll try to charge you another $300. And then if you want, an optimizer, then you're going to pay another $150 for that sport. And they just continue to ring it up. We're just one price for all. And, I really like the product that we have out there.
Yep, agree on that. Let's talk about the FanDuel slate. And again, we're gonna mention a lot of the same stuff, so we'll probably breeze through this one a little quicker. Like Ferkser, same thing as we said. Brandon Cook, same thing as we said. I think Cooper Kupp, same thing. Just these guys were too cheap. It was simple. Dalvin Cook was easy to get in there based on everything. Myles Gaskin was the guy that was like Montgomery was the underpriced DK guy. I felt like Gaskin was the underpriced FanDuel guy. Did you feel the same way with that one?
5-5. I mean, just you had to play him in cash games. Like they didn't have any other running backs or touchdown favorite at home. He ran bad. Like, I mean, he was at the goal line a couple times. And honestly, like, this is a totally separate, situation aside from DFS, but what are the Dolphins doing? I mean, they're just such a better team with Ryan Fitzpatrick out there. The Tua thing is a disaster. I mean, they looked a little bit better in the second half, but they have a chance. Like they have a pretty good team. I mean, their defense is good. They're playing well. Tua is just not the answer this year. And they're probably going to learn the lesson the hard way.
I don't understand why they just won't say to Tua, listen, like you've done a fine, like, okay job. Like you clearly have some improvements. We think
Yes.
Ryan's going to help us for the next 5 weeks or so, but you are the future, right? And like Ryan understands that, like, and we want, like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, you can say to Tua, like, we want to make sure we can get to the playoffs here, and we want to get these guys experience, right? Like, it's just like a growing experience. Yes. Like, just let's do that. And I get you want to. I'm all for throwing your quarterback into the fire and like letting them figure it out and trying to figure out for your franchise if Tua is your guy. But the problem is they're not like 4-12, right? Like they're actually have a chance. Like they don't have a chance at getting Trevor Lawrence. So there's no point. Like just play Fitzpatrick, then give Tua next year, and then see what happens. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the logical way to approach it. They're going the illogical route, unfortunately, and it's tough to see. But, Gaskin and Cook, I talked about it. They had 5 or 6 chances at the goal line, did not convert on any. So you get 34 fantasy points between those two. It easily could have been like 12 or 13 points higher. I mean, easily if they get those touchdowns. Cook, Gaskin, I think you definitely had to play. Now, Cook was 10-5 on FanDuel. The price is up there. But like we both said, it was easy to get him. You got Ferkser as a punt at 4-6. You have the cheap wide receivers. We talked about Kupp. We talked about Cooks. They're equally underpriced on FanDuel. So you plug them in. Allen Robinson, a guy that Trubisky loves throwing to. He was under 7K here. And at under 7K with the upside he has, I thought you really needed to work him in. It was also easy to do so. He crushed in the first half, and then the Bears started doing weird shit in the second half, and they ended up losing the game. But, Robinson, 6 catches, 75 yards, not the greatest, but, I mean, it was fine. I mean, the problem with this lineup in terms of cashing, it was a lot of middling performances, right? I mean, you look at it, it was just a lot of average performances. Nobody busted in this lineup. Nobody busted at all, but nobody went bonkers. And that was kind of the problem they had. I mean, this team also built itself and could have been built in a matter of minutes. Austin Eckler, again, we felt great about him. All that passing work, he doesn't get there, and it's even more painful on FanDuel when it's only half PPR, but a ton of middling performances. Packers defense did great, but everything else was middling. And, it was, in terms of the results, in terms of winning and losing, it got some money back, but overall the lineup ended up being a loser for the most part in 50-50s. Yes, some cashed in some spots, but overall it wasn't good enough. You really needed something more from, basically anyone. Deshaun Watson crushed in the first half and then just nothing in the second half. This team just ran really, really bad. And then Cooks gets hurt, comes back and gets a big catch, but he missed a couple series. So it's just average performances and just not enough to cash in everything.
Yeah, I'll say this too about kind of like FanDuel in general, but like this team was a massive train, right? I think if you were like a little bit off of this team, that's fine. But like if you were like way off and have like all these 5% guys, like definitely reevaluate some of the stuff you're doing, and like study up like the lineups and try and see what you did, compared to others, and work on the process. That's kind of the stuff that I would say, because I think it was really clear cut this week. I did consider making some swaps, but it was tough. It was really tough to make the decision if you could do it. Because again, these games like start at 4:05 and like you still have like 10 minutes left in some of the games. And I had only found one swap I really liked, and I found it too late. What was your take on like the swapping situation?
Yeah, it was tough because no one really busted, from the early games. I mean, everyone did like decent. So, I mean, the one guy, in terms of swapping, it was tough yesterday. You kind of felt okay after the 1:00 games. Like, you knew you probably weren't going to win everything, but you felt okay. So it was tough to swap. I mean, the only guy that, maybe I regret playing, and not looking more into would be Austin Eckler on FanDuel. I mean, you're playing him for all the receptions. You only get half the points. I was just thinking after because I did really like David Montgomery.
He was so cheap though. I mean,
yeah, exactly. The price was good.
Miles Sanders was 7,200 on FanDuel, while Miles Sanders was 6,700 on DK. Like you were getting a nice price difference. Like David Montgomery was 5,500 on DK, while he was 6,200 on FanDuel. Like only $800 from Montgomery to Eckler. I don't know. It felt like it was hard because he felt like he had this Christian McCaffrey type role, and he ran really terrible with it being 45-0, obviously. Yeah. So, I don't know. I thought it was tough to get off Eckler.
Yeah, the only thing, thinking after was like, all right, was it a mistake playing him over David Montgomery? And it probably wasn't, but, it's just kind of, Monday morning quarterback type talk.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the question is like, if you did that, what do you change, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's just nowhere to go. I mean,
yes. You go from Allen Robinson to you had $800, like to what, like the 7,500 receivers,
wide receiver. There's nothing there. I mean, yeah.
And a lot of these guys were locked in. That's why it's a problem when these sites mess up on the salaries or don't make any adjustments. Because what happens is we just fall on things that are similar. It's not some secret chat, but what are you gonna do? Let's talk about the Millie though. That's a fun time. Before we dive into talk about the Millie though, just we'll mention one last time. You got a show coming up here. If you watched this before, 2:30, we're doing a 2-game free show for you guys. You get to watch the 2-game slate, and we should have some Showdown content tomorrow, I would assume, right, Hoop? We're gonna be talking Showdown in the free stuff for 2:30, but I'm assuming for the Ravens Cowboys game, we'll have a little Showdown content with you and Big T.
Yep, Tony and I will record the Showdown show most likely tomorrow morning, and then we'll have the playbook, core plays, and everything to go along with it. So get a bonus Showdown slate. We're doing the one today for free. Tomorrow will be premium. So if you follow the content today and do well, give it a whirl. Buckets 15% off for life. It's a good opportunity to get in at a discounted rate.
Yep. Get in on that and hit that like, hit that subscribe on this video and the one at 2:30 helps us out a ton. Let's talk about the Millie Maker though. I want to see this team. I looked at it a little bit before we got on here, and man, so it was a goofy day. I know Brandon Adams had 2 teams. I guess he had the same exact team on this one in third place. So good for him. That was like the one name I noticed at the top. And there were some goofy teams. I know he definitely gets off the beaten path with the kind of teams that he builds. He was not the winner, obviously, so we'll talk about the winner here. What's the thing that sticks out to you the most at first? I mean, the craziest thing to me is like seeing, I get it. Darren Waller is on there, but like a double tight end took it down. Like that's crazy to see. You don't really see double tight end taking much things down anymore.
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing is you needed Patriots defense. Like if you were going to win, the tournaments, you had to have Patriots defense. Monster performance. I mean, 31 points from a defense, monstrous. After that, you needed Carr and you needed Waller. And usually in these situations, you need something on the other side. And Jamison Crowder had a pretty big game, right? He had 2 touchdowns, I believe.
He caught 2.
Yeah, but these teams didn't run it back. Like he didn't run it back with anyone on the Jets side.
Some would say on Twitter, Hoop, they would say that this dude did not build his lineup correctly because he didn't run it back with Crowder. And how dare him? He had Waller in the flex. That ruins everything. He could not make switches later on, but he won $1 million. So we can't.
Yeah, exactly. I hate when people say that stuff. Like it is what it is. Like, I mean, you don't have to do things a certain way. It's the beauty of DFS. Not much correlation. I mean, there's a secondary correlation with James Robinson and Justin Jefferson, who both had big games. Outside of that, not a heavily correlated line. I mean, really no correlation, but it won. And this guy now has $1 million. So it really doesn't matter. Like I said, the pieces you absolutely needed in tournaments were Patriots defense, Waller, and David Carr. Outside of that, I mean, Corey Davis, probably you needed to have 2. He had a monster game, 11 catches, 182 yards. And, we kind of talked about that on the wood too, with, the Derrick Henry situation. Like, man, like Titans, they have some pieces. Like AJ Brown is a beast. Corey Davis, I know Tony will never give us any credit about talking about Corey Davis, but Corey Davis has played well, and he's establishing himself as a solid wide receiver in the NFL. But overall, I mean, this was, it was a different team than what we typically see taking things down, but he won the Millie.
Yeah, I actually do think I heard Ian Hartett say this. It was pretty good. Like Corey Davis was like never like supposed to be this number 1. Like he's kind of more like a tweener, right? Like he's not like built like Metcalf and AJ Brown, but he was always a really good college receiver too. Played at some of those one of those smaller schools. I forget which one it was, but I think Corey Davis has found a nice little role there with the Titans. And this Titans offense is good. So I'm excited to watch them here in the playoffs. That'll be a lot of fun when those playoff slates come around the corner.
Yeah.
We're getting close to it for sure. But the funny thing about the season, I look at this team. You could have gave me 1,000 lineups, maybe 2,000 lineups. I never would have built this hoop.
No.
It was and it didn't just win hoop, right? Like it won by 4 points, which is a lot when it comes to like a Millie Maker, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty
impressive. Had all the pieces.
Yeah. I'm gonna look at Brandon's team real quick. So I know Brandon will definitely correlate things pretty well. Oh man, that's unfortunate. He had anything from Perriman. Look, so he actually did the correlation, right? With the Jets receiver. And obviously you couldn't get Crowder in the way he set it up, but, pretty nice little team that he made there. Just it's unfortunate to get. I would be so mad if I got third in the million. I had a snowflake in my lineup. I would be absolutely furious.
Yeah. So this is more of the lineups that we typically see winning these things. So you got David Carr with 2 pass catchers, Waller and Ruggs, and then coming back with 1 piece in Perriman. That's the easiest way you can build tournament teams, because more times than not, the people taking down these tournaments they're correlated. And this is a correlated lineup. You got the Carr, you have Ruggs, and you have Waller, and you bring it back with Perriman. If he gets anything from Perriman, he wins this thing. He gets 3.2 from Perriman. He finishes 3rd and 4th. And then some chalk. I mean, we always talk about it, man. Like on the Wooden stuff or whatever show we're doing tournaments, like you don't have to play all guys that are like 5% owned. Like he builds this team, plays the most popular, probably the 2 most popular running backs, Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery. Aaron Jones was low owned, landed on the Patriots defense here and landed on Corey Davis. You don't have to get crazy. I think a lot of people when they build these teams, like, oh, I can't play Cook, he's going to be popular. I can't play David Montgomery, he's going to be popular. Like, you don't have to worry about that when you have a quarterback that's going to be 4%. You have a wide receiver that's 4%, a tight end that's 9%. Another running back that's 7%. You can play the guys that are 100% owned at that point. It doesn't matter. So just one thing to consider when building tournament teams.
Yeah, and one other thing I think he did that was really great about this setup, and when you're looking to make teams, is if you looked at last week, it seemed like the construction was go for a mid 5K, a couple mid 5K or 6K receivers, go for a really cheap one, like below like 3.9 or lower. And then or go all the way to the top, like at Devontae Adams, right? Those was kind of the builds. This one just said ignoring those ranges and went to Corey Davis, Ruggs, and Perriman. Basically went to the dead range and said, I'll find guys in the range that people are not playing receivers, found the 2 guys, and then, filled it out with the rest. And obviously did a spend up on the tight end. That's another thing too. Like when there is a cheap tight end, when there's a cheap tight end that's popular, I like the idea of spending up on a tight end.
Oh, absolutely. It's the easiest. Some of my best tournament teams have been on slates where the Chiefs are playing, and that there's a min price tight end. Guess what? I'm just going to pay up for Kelsey. That's kind of what he did here. I mean, man, did he run good at the end of these games? Look, he gets that Ruggs touchdown at the end, and then Aaron Jones at the end. This team was might have been out of the money prior to those 2 plays.
That's funny. Yeah, no. And the Patriots too, obviously they got a lot of points that just kept piling, but definitely, definitely interesting and like looking at these, and we'll be breaking them down more for the people. Hoop, I guess, hit me with your final thoughts before we get on out of here.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I guess the overall sentiment here on this show is the pricing on the sites and what to do with cash games, because like we talked about, I mean, it's tough when you're playing these games and people are 70, 80% owned. It makes it tough to beat the rake in cash games. It really does. I mean, it did well on our team that we played on DK did well. On FanDuel, it didn't do so well. It just it makes it tough when the pricing is this bad. And it's probably not going to change. I mean, it's probably going to continue to be the same. But you're like forced to play these teams and hope that your opponents try to do something a little bit different, I guess. I mean, that's really all you can do at this point. Just play the right plays and hope that, your opponents make mistakes, which, the way things are going in DFS, they really don't make the mistakes that they used to.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing, guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and also don't miss out on the 2:30 show that we mentioned. If you watch it right now, check this show out. You'll be able to check the 2:30 show out. We will be doing the 2-game slate, core plays, all that good stuff. Also, use the promo code Buckets15 to get 15% off. And if you're on Monkey Knife Fight, if you're not on Monkey Knife Fight, what are you doing? Head on over, use the code RUNPURE, put $50 in, you get an extra $50 on top, $100 all together. Get in the Discord and getting on the Monkey Knife Fight plays. We got to get out of here, though, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Mangone, and Hoop, we're out of here.